Hello, everyone. Welcome to This Day. It is Saturday, December 12th. Well, on our show today, we have memorial care with Dr. Drury and Dr. Shaw. Very nice men that talk a lot about a variety of different things that are going on with memorial care. Then we also are going to have the Christmas tree ideas, where you can use one Christmas tree with 5 different ideas, of course. And then we have found some QVC deals that were actually advertised on the Today Show, but we're gonna replay those for you right here on Village Television. So stay with us for that later on in our program. Let's go ahead and go right to our resources that we normally do for COVID-19. We're going to send you to covid19.ca.gov for all of the governor's plans, or you can go to ochealthinfo.com where you can get all of the COVID numbers by zip code. And then they have a hotline, which is 714-834-2000. Of course, you could always go to our website, which is lagunawoodsvillagealerts.com, or you could email us at info@lagunawoodsvillage.com. Now, our weather this weekend is lovely. It is not too hot and not too cold. It's kind of just right. 68, 49 for today, partly sunny, and then tomorrow we're looking at 71, 51, and then Monday with some sunshine, 69, 50. Now, if you are traveling and you're heading to the beaches, it's 65, 50, Mammoth, 43, 20, not very much snow up there. Big Bear, 48, 23, and then Palm Springs is 71, 49. Now, our sunrise this morning was 6:46, and our sunset will be 4:44. Now, Alan's been very busy out there, and he sent us this photo of somebody's yard. He didn't specify whether it was his or not, but nonetheless, very decorative for the holidays. So thank you, Alan. We appreciate you sending that in. And if you have some photos of holiday spirit, please forward it to us at lagunawoodsvillagetv@gmail.com. All right, when we come back, we will have memorial care, so stay tuned.
Today, patients have many options for their care, whether it's their private doctor, in urgent care, retail clinics, nursing advice lines, and even telemedicine. So while patients do have many options for their medical problems today, some conditions, such as heart attack, stroke, and sepsis, truly need immediate care in the emergency department. Every minute does count. We're here ready to help 24/7, 365 days a year at Memorial Care Saddleback Medical Center Emergency Department.
Welcome back. Today I am joined by 2 doctors who are here from Memorial Care Saddleback Medical Center. We have Dr. Paul Drury and Dr. Ashish Shah, who are both cardiac electrophysiologists. Well, welcome both of you. Thank you for joining me.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah, thank you for having us.
So we're going to talk about AFib and also a new procedure that's Watchman. So let's start with you, Dr. Drury. Why don't you tell me what AFib is?
So atrial fibrillation is actually the most common irregular heart rhythm. And it affects upwards of 3 million people in the United States and upwards of 35 to 40 million people worldwide. It's something that impacts the older population more than the younger, with upwards of 15 to 20% of people over the age of 85 carrying a diagnosis of atrial fibrillation. Now, what atrial fibrillation is when your heart's normal rhythm or sinus rhythm gets taken over by an irregular rhythm. So there is a chaotic irregular rhythm that is generated by the upper chambers or the atria of the heart, and these will take over and cause a chaotic irregular heart rhythm. Now, the issue that causes AFib is often multifactorial. Age can do it, heart conditions, high blood pressure, diabetes, or some healthy people even get it. Now, what the problem is atrial fibrillation, since it's irregular and it's an inefficient heartbeat, can cause blood to stagnate. And when blood stagnates, blood clots can form. And when a blood clot can form, if it leaves the heart, it can lead to stroke or other conditions where an embolism or a blood clot can go and block off blood supply to certain organs.
Okay. Now, how long have you been a cardiophysiologist?
So I've been an electrophysiologist practicing here at Saddleback for about 6.5 years.
See, I keep getting those mixed up. I apologize.
No problem.
So wait, you're both are cardiologists.
We are both cardiologists.
Cardiologists.
So we are cardiologists who specialize in cardiac electrophysiology.
Oh, well, there you go. Thanks for that clarification.
Yeah.
I hope I'm not the only one that does that.
No, most people don't even know that we exist, so that's okay.
Well, that's a terrible thing to say. All right, well, let's talk about, because obviously this is a very important subject because, I mean, you know, the numbers that you were throwing out, that's an awful lot of people that are dealing with this. So let me just rephrase we'll talk about both of your backgrounds. So quickly, Dr. Drury, tell me your background.
My background, I'm a local Southern California guy. Did my medical school at University of Southern California and all my training at the Harbor UCLA Medical Center up in Los Angeles and Torrance.
Okay.
After that, I've been practicing locally in Orange County for now about 6.5 years here at Saddleback and in Laguna Hills. My specialty, as we said, is cardiac electrophysiology. So what that means is I'm an electrical specialist for the heart. So one way people can look at it is once you become a cardiologist, there are the general cardiologists who treat a little bit of everything. Then you have the plumbers and the electricians. The plumbers fix the arteries, the electricians fix the electrical work. And so Dr. Shaw and myself are both electricians. And so what we do is we deal with the wiring of the heart. And so we treat conditions such as irregular heartbeats, which can be both fast and slow, do both medical therapy, and then you can do procedures to treat the heart conditions. And those can include pacemakers, defibrillators, or cardiac ablations. And so that's what we do.
Okay, and how about you, Dr. Shaw? Where did you get your education?
I'm from Central Illinois, so I'm a Midwesterner, and I went to medical school up in Chicago and also did my medical training out there. Then I went to the Northeast to do my training in cardiology and further training in electrophysiology, with the last stop was at Beth Israel. And then after that, moved out here, which it's been about 2.5 years now, goes by quickly. Also, as Dr. Drury had mentioned, an electrophysiologist specializing in rhythm disorders.
Okay. So I know that you had given us some numbers, and I don't think we really talked a little bit about age. So we talked about, as you know, older folks. Can this also happen to younger people?
It could also happen to younger people, although it's much less common in younger people. In some families, there's a genetic predisposition where multiple family members will get the condition at a young age, let's say under 40, but that's very rare. Other people who unfortunately develop heart conditions at a young age, whether it's a valve problem, thyroid disease, accelerated high blood pressure, things like sleep apnea, can also lead to an increased rate of atrial fibrillation. But despite all of those, generally under the age of 60, 65, less than 1% of people have atrial fibrillation. But it does happen. It does happen.
Okay. Now, traditionally, treatments, there have been a variety. I think you mentioned pacemaker and a couple of other things. So let's just talk a little bit about those types of treatments.
Okay. So traditionally, treatment for atrial fibrillation is really twofold. The first, as I mentioned, with one of the problems with atrial fibrillation and the biggest risk and the biggest thing we worry about with atrial fibrillation is it can lead to a stroke. So the first thing we always do when we see a patient with atrial fibrillation is assess their stroke risk and develop a treatment to prevent stroke or at least decrease the risk of stroke. Now, some really young, healthy patients have very low stroke risk, and we can get by without using blood thinners or any specific treatment. But the majority of people, especially over the age of 75, high blood pressure, people with heart failure or diabetes, require more intense treatment to prevent stroke. And that classically has been in the treatment with anticoagulants or oral medications that thin the blood. Mm-hmm. We used to only have warfarin or Coumadin, which is modified rat poison, which is what we use. And people would need to go get their blood tested frequently. Doses would need to be adjusted carefully. And there were many interactions with medications and foods. Over the past 10 years or so, newer agents have come out that can be given in a standard dose, which are as effective with a lower bleeding risk and better safety profile than warfarin. So that's the classic treatment for atrial fibrillation to prevent stroke. Okay. The other aspect is, what do we do with the rhythm? Some people were able just to control the heart rate and use medications to keep the heart rate regular, in the regular range, which would be, let's say, 60 to 100 beats per minute with medications. Other times, if people are very symptomatic and they feel the atrial fibrillation, and those symptoms can include palpitations, racing heartbeat, shortness of breath, dizziness, chest pain, or even some people will pass out from this, we like to get a little bit more aggressive. So then we can use specialized medication to keep the rhythm out of atrial fibrillation. Now, these are called antiarrhythmic medications. Or in some cases, we recommend procedures, things like cardiac ablation, to try and eliminate the atrial fibrillation and keep it normal rhythm with or without other medications.
Okay, now before we get into a device that you want to talk about, Dr. Shaw, can you tell me, is there anything in particular that people can do to prevent this from happening?
Yeah, so I think as Dr. Ray had mentioned, the risk factors that are included, I think the big picture is maintaining a healthy lifestyle. It's prevention of disease. By preventing disease, you prevent your incidence of atrial fibrillation. So if you are a person that ideally has a healthy lifestyle, preventing the development of things like diabetes or high blood pressure, that speaks volumes for your potential for reducing your risk of developing further issues down the road. Now, let's say you already have diabetes or high blood pressure or even sleep apnea. Careful monitoring and treatment of those diseases, keeping them in check, will help reduce the strain on the cardiopulmonary system and therefore reduce the risk of developing atrial fibrillation down the road. Unfortunately, it's not 100%. So you can do all the right things. And we have, Dr. Drury and myself take care of a number of patients that are, 50, healthy, active living, great in shape people, but they still develop what we call lone AFib and can sometimes be highly symptomatic from that as well. So risk modification and living a healthy lifestyle is the biggest thing. And if you do have chronic comorbidities, making sure you're treating them, actively following up with your physicians that are involved in your therapies, and being compliant with your therapy is extremely important.
Yeah, I would imagine that it's hard for some people, especially when you talk about sleep apnea, because nobody wants to use that machine. So how do you convince them, to use that stuff?
That conversation comes up every day. And I think any EP that talks about AFib talks about sleep apnea. And the reason is because there is a direct correlation between sleep apnea and atrial fibrillation. And we know by consistent therapy and intervention with your sleep apnea that the AFib is markedly reduced. And how do you convince them? That's the question that always comes up. The old teaching of 21 days to make a habit, is one component. To stick with it, suffer for 3 weeks and see if you can tolerate it. But the big thing is a lot of people have explored sleep apnea a few years ago and didn't ever revisit it, and then now have AFib. So what I tell them is that there's a lot of new devices, breathing apparatus that are much more comfortable, people are much more compliant with as well, that may they're more likely to be compliant with that therapy. So I would highly recommend them to revisit their sleep specialist or whoever diagnosed them with sleep apnea to look at their options and possible interventions.
Right, and I think there's new technology surrounding those types of devices as well. So hopefully they'll keep improving on those and nobody will have to wear the big mask anymore. All right, so let's jump into the Watchman. What is the Watchman device?
I think that question was for me, so I'll start by trying to answer as best as I can. So the Watchman device is a small device that we implant through the femoral vein, so that's a single access site, less than a size of a pencil, into the vein of the upper leg. We are able to then manipulate this device into an area of the heart called the left atrial appendage. Now, the left atrial appendage is the area of the heart that is most commonly associated with clot in atrial fibrillation. So the most common location for where the stroke comes from. So by closing this area off, we're able to decrease the risk of someone having a stroke. Now, the beauty is a lot of people, as we talked about before, need to be on blood thinners to prevent stroke, but there's a large percentage of the population that struggles with recurrent bleeding being on blood thinners. So the Watchman is a device that we are able to implant, exclude the area of the heart where blood clots come from, therefore decrease the risk of stroke. And we are able then to stop using high potency blood thinners and then decrease the risk of bleeding. So we'll be able to show you an example of what the Watchman device looks like, but it's a metal cage with a mesh covering and it sits snugly inside an area of the heart called the left atrial appendage.
Okay. And then how does this differ from some of the other procedures that you mentioned? Is it simpler? Is it an easier recovery?
It's a completely different procedure. So the other procedures we mentioned, whether it's medications, blood thinners, or pacemakers, are all things all things that actually affect the heart rhythm and try and keep the rhythm normal. The Watchman doesn't do anything of that sort. It is solely to prevent stroke. And the reason we do this is, despite our best efforts with medications and ablations, often atrial fibrillation does recur at some point down the road. We do a pretty good job, but there's still a high enough recurrence rate that we oftentimes will recommend people stay on these blood thinning medications. Right. Also, one of the treatment plans is just controlling heart rate. So we know the atrial fibrillation is going to continue. And so the blood thinning medication needs to be on board. So what the Watchman device does is just prevents the need for long-term blood thinners and reduces the risk of stroke. It does not affect the heart rate, or it does not regulate the heart rate in atrial fibrillation.
So Dr. Shaw, is the only person that, or the only patient that really would benefit from this is someone who is on blood thinners, or who would be a great candidate for this?
Yeah, so as Dr. Drury mentioned, the biggest population we focus on are the ones that have had a bleeding risk or an issue. But let's take, for example, someone that for whatever reason, they were considered higher risk and they never went on blood thinners. So I don't want the patient to think, oh, I'm not on a blood thinner, therefore I don't need the Watchman procedure, but I have a fib. It's a conversation we want to have with the patients. It's outreach and it's a matter of education. But basically, most patients, I think, that are 60 years and plus that have a fib should ask the question, is Watchman right for me? And what we focus on are not just risk factors for patients of who is more likely to need it, but also their history. If they've already had a GI bleed or bleeding in their GI tract, whether it be blood in the stool, in their urinary system and blood in the urine, whether they've had a hemorrhagic bleed from some other issues, any other part of the body. But it's not just that. It's also, we look at people that are high risk. So maybe someone has to be on blood thinners, has had a stroke history, has a fib, but also has a high risk of falling. They haven't had a bleed yet, but we're worried about them falling and having a traumatic bleed. That's another person that we'd want to include in this protocol for screening for Watchmen. And then people that engage in sometimes high risk activities. So I have patients, we both carry patients that 75 plus that have risk factors for stroke, that have a fib, and then they like to mountain bike still, or they like to do certain things. So we have this conversation with them. So I think generally speaking, to determine if Watchman is right for that individual person, it's a conversation with the appropriate physician. And myself and Dr. Drury, we're all happy to have that conversation. There's a number of cardiologists in the area that don't necessarily put in the Watchman device that we do, but they do have those conversations on a regular basis with their patients. So again, the public service announcement is, if you have AFib and you're 60 plus especially, talk to your cardiologist about it. Talk to your cardiologist about this Watchman device.
So, Dr. Drury, you mentioned that it was very small, the size of a pencil. So I would imagine then that the recovery is fairly easy?
Yes, the procedure is done. It's minimally invasive. I said it's all done from a very small access site in the groin. Takes about 1 hour on average. Generally, it's a one-night hospital stay, but even that night, you'll be walking around and being able to do a lot of the normal activities. We recommend no strenuous activities such as working out, lifting anything heavy for probably at least 10 days after the procedure, but that's really about it. So right afterwards, we'll be able to eat, walk around after about a few hours of bed rest, and then home the next morning and back to normal activities almost within a couple days, and then back to the gym.
Okay.
Even in a week or two.
All right. Well, great. Well, thank you both for the information. I appreciate you taking the time. And we will see you again.
All right. Thank you.
And we'll be right back after this.
If you struggle to hear during FaceTime or Zoom calls, or when others are wearing a mask, we have an answer. Hi, I'm Ann Mundell-Noel, audiologist and owner of Amazing Hearing. The Widex Moment is the fastest processing hearing aid available. Faster processing means the best clarity possible for you. Join us at our Widex Moment hearing event going on now and experience what our patients are saying.
The Moment hearing aid has changed my life.
Call us today to schedule your appointment.
Welcome back. Well, many of you may have gone down that path of getting your Christmas tree this last weekend. But if not, no worries. You can just take this information in and decide on what you'd like to do. So I thought I would tell you 5 different ways that you could decorate your Christmas tree. So the first one is you can have an edible Christmas tree. Of course, if you have animals, that might be a little tempting for them to jump on the tree and eat it. But you could do embroidery floss to thread the cranberries or freshly popped popcorn. Or you could use dried fruit such as oranges, and you can hang them as ornaments. So that's kind of a nice idea. Then you can do a floral one where you could take lots of different silk flowers, or of course you could do fresh flowers, but then you'd have to rotate them out. But silk flowers might be a nice way to go. And this is done, lots of people do this with poinsettias. You can just kind of plop them around and give them some color. But this one obviously is a little bit different where you have roses and you have lots of different kinds of flowers. And they suggest that you cut the flower stems to be about 5 inches long and stick the flower stem right into the tree towards the trunk. And then they can stick out that way. So that's a pretty idea. Now, of course, you could go modern, black and white, where you could have geometric designs into solid white ornaments. Now, you could draw these on there with a Sharpie, and you could even do polka dots, stripes, or hearts. And then you can use black and white ribbon as an easy way to add different types of personality and texture into the tree. Some people take the ribbon, it goes from the very top of the tree all the way down, and that gives it a real pretty look as well. Now you could decorate your tree in a colorful fashion where you use a variety of different layers of ribbon here. Now you can use ribbon, or you could even use that crepe paper that people use for birthday parties. And of course you can decorate it from either the top, like I mentioned, to the bottom of the tree, or you can wrap it around the tree branches. So either way, it's going to look really pretty. Now the last one we have is you choose a single color, and it's going to be one hue, basically, not a single color, but one hue of color. So all blues, different colors of blues, all greens, all reds, whatever you'd like to do. And you can do like from top to the bottom, where you go from light to dark or dark to light, whatever you'd like. And then of course you can finish it off with some ribbon. So it's a really nice, few ideas for you. If you have an idea, please email it to us. We'd love to see what you do at Christmas time. And you can email those photos to Laguna Woods Village TV @gmail.com. We'd love to see what you guys do. All right, stay tuned. We're going to take a break, and when we come back, we'll have the movie for today.
This is Dr. Trin from Irvine Clinical Research. I hope that during this pandemic that you're doing well and keeping safe. During these times, I want to let you know that we're still offering memory testing at no cost through Healthy Brain consultations. If you or your loved ones have concerns with memory loss, you don't need to leave your home to chat with me. We're offering these consultations online. Call us at 753-1663 to schedule your Healthy Brain consultation video chat. Thank you so much and take care.
Before we get to our movie, we are going to share with you some QVC deals as seen on the Today Show. So our first item, I feel like I'm actually on the show. So our first item is called a Pop Sonic set of 2 Smoothie hair trimmer devices, and it looks just like a lipstick. You can get a set of 2 of these for the QVC price of $29. The next one is a Tarte Big Ego Amazonian Clay Brow and Root Camo Kit. And this is a set of 2 of these where you can camouflage the gray in your roots and fill in your brows for a QVC price of $32. Then the next item is Josie Marin Argan Power Serum Trio. Now, gosh, this retails for $203, and you can get this for $99. And with that, you get the Argan Smooth Skin Resurfacing Serum, Bright Skin Vitamin C Serum, and the Beta Retinode Pink Algae Serum. So that sounds like something nice, probably what we could use for all of this dry skin we're experiencing. Okay, the next item is the Affinity 14 karat plated diamond initial stud earrings, personalized, so it never goes out of style, and it has gorgeous diamond, well, they're not real diamonds, but nonetheless, little round diamonds, diamondique type things. And that is QVC sale price for $49.15. So that looks like a good deal. Skechers Ultra Flex flat knit slip-on shoes, and they have black and natural. And the QVC price is $51 to $53, and I'm assuming that whatever color you choose is going to depend on the price. The next item is called the Barefoot Dreams Cozy Chic Light Double Knit Notch Collar Cardigan, and it's nylon and a rayon blend, and it's a blazer style collar, so it can be worn anywhere, not just at home. And that QVC price is $94.98. Then our next item is the Berkshire 60-inch by 80-inch solid printed PrimaLuxe novelty throw. And you just get, says instead of spending nearly $80 for two separate ones, you can get these and you get a pair for $49. So that's a good deal. Then we have the G.I.L.I by Jill Martin oversized snow fur bonded throw. Now I know Mark had his eye on this one. He really likes this one for $59.98. Super cozy. Okay, then I think Paul had his eye on this one, the Nespresso Vertuo Plus Coffee and Espresso Machine by DeLonghi. And you get great stuff there. You have your water, and you can have your espressos and personal sizes, and that is 26% off of the usual price at $130.99. Now, if you would like to buy all of these fantastic items, or whatever your favorite is, you can go to qvc.com. All right, let's go ahead and tell you about our movie today, and it is A League of Their Own, which is a great flick. It has all sorts of great stars in it, and I can just give you a real quick. It's got who's in there? Tom Hanks, and believe it or not, we've got Gina Davis, Lori Petty, and all sorts of other great folks. And that you can watch today at 3 p.m. with subtitles, 6 p.m. without subtitles, and that is brought to you by Memorial Care. Let's take a look at our weather one last time. Lovely weather today. We've got 68 is the high, 49 overnight, 71, 51 for Sunday, 69, 50 for Monday. And if you are traveling, you are looking at temperatures that are just nice for either going to Palm Springs, Mammoth, Big Bear, or the beaches. And you can have a great day today and enjoy your Sunday tomorrow. We'll see you back here again on Monday at 9 a.m. with Jeff Parker and some other interesting, fun things for the holidays. Have a great weekend. Bye-bye.
We consider hearing to be an essential part of your life. During this time of quarantine and isolation, you need to be hearing the best you can to understand how to stay safe and to hear your friends and family. Advanced Ear Care is offering service to everyone that needs help with their hearing aids, no matter where it was you purchased. If it's not working properly, please call for a free troubleshooting appointment. We even have hands-free, no-contact curbside service. There's no charge for this service. Advanced Ear Care is here to keep you hearing during these critical days.